everyone. Our topic of discussion today is stature estimation. See, let's say we found a femur bone at the crime scene, just a bone. Now, from this bone, can we identify the height of that person? Yes. For this, we use a tool called osteometric board. See, osteometric board has two hands. One is fixed and other is free and which can adjust according to the length of the bone. So, osteometric from this osteometric board will measure first the length of the bone. Now we will put this length in some formulas which are called regression formulas, which are Carl Pearson and Tottler Gessner formula. When we'll substitute the length of the femur bone in this formula, we'll get the height of the individual, right? And the height of the individual is best estimated using long bones, and in long bones also the femur bone. Now there are also some multiplication factors and there are constant for each bone. So if we get the length of that bone from the osteometric board, we just multiply that constant, then we'll get the entire height of the person who is dead, right? So how will we learn this multiplication factor? See, let's start off with femur. Just remember one number, that femur the factor is 3.7. So over here we have 3.7 in femur. Now we have to add plus 8 every time. So the next longest bone after femur will be what? Tibia. So tibia is 4.5. Then humerus is 5.3, adding zero point 0.8. Humerus is 5.3, ulna is 6.1. And now you see ulna and radius, they are almost the same, right? There is no pointed difference. So now just 8.4. So the radius is 6.5. So what do? You start 3.7 from femur and then you keep on adding zero point 0.8 till the last ulna and radius. Here you just add zero point 0.4. So this was multiplication factor which is constant for every bone. Now see, there is some, let's say, the spine, it has a specific contribution to the entire human height. If the spine is recovered from the dead body, then using this contribution percentage we can find the entire height of the individual. So femur contributes 27, tibia contributes 22, and humerus contributes 20%. So the contribution of different bone can be used to determine the height of the individual. Now stature or height is best determined using femur bone, as I told you. Race is best determined using skull bone, that we have discussed. And sex is best determined using pelvis bone, that also we discussed in the earlier lecture. In pelvis we see greater sciatic notch. See, in over here you can see the male greater sciatic notch is deeper and narrower, while femur is in female the greater sciatic notch is less deep but it is wide over here. So shallow and wide in female and deep and narrow in male, so that is greater sciatic notch. So from that we can determine the sex. So for stature we have female, race we have skull, and sex we have pelvis. Now coming on to fingerprinting. What is fingerprinting? See, fingerprinting, this over here you can see these are papillary ridges. So the impression of papillary ridges, these papillary ridges on skin surface, this is fingerprinting. And the study of fingerprinting is called dactylography or dermatographics, and it is also called Galton's system. Why? Because Francis Galton was the first to systemize the fingerprintings. He was the first to use this fingerprinting systematically, while William Hershey was the first person to use fingerprints. It goes way back in 1850s and 1890s. World first fingerprinting bureau was established in Kolkata in our country, and the current system used is Galton's system. Now see, what are the advantage of fingerprinting? See, there is a one interesting fact over here, that it is superior to DNA fingerprinting. Let's see in this image, these are monozygotic twins. So they are monozygotic, made from the same zygote. So they'll obviously have the same DNA. So the DNA fingerprinting will be same. But even then their fingerprinting is different. Why? Because this fingerprint is caused due to the pressure in the womb. Now the pressure that is encountered by this baby will be different from this fetus, right? So the encountered pressure in this womb, that result in these impressions called fingerprinting. So it will be different in monozygotic twins, and it does not have familiar inheritance. Why? It is not passed down to generation. This is just pressure that has encountered inside that womb. So it is superior to DNA fingerprinting. And probability of same finger having same fingerprinting is very rare. It is 1 in 64,000 millions. Okay, so it is very rare. Now recovery depth. See, fingerprint can be recovered up till dermis here. So even if the surface is burnt, it can be recovered 0.6 mm deep to the skin up to the dermis. Now, development of fingerprinting starts from 12 to 6 weeks and completed to 20 to 24. So 12 to 16 it starts, 20 to 24 it gets completed. Now, see, types of fingerprinting. These are classified at the crime scene. Okay, at the crime scene, if you see a blood stained visible fingerprinting, it is called a visible fingerprint type. Now some fingerprinting, let's say this fingerprint on this glass or a table, they are not directly visible, they are latent fingerprintings, but they require some developing technique. Let's say this light is focused, or there can be a powder that is sprayed over there, so this fingerprint is visible. So this is latent fingerprint. Plastic fingerprint is the fingerprinting on a yielding surface where there is impression or it can leave its mark. So any wax or anywhere, if the accused has used any wax, the fingerprinting of accused is stored in this. So yielding surface, we have plastic fingerprinting. So we have visible, latent and plastic fingerprints. Now types of fingerprints. See, just focus over here in this diagram. There are only three types, sorry, there are four types of fingerprinting. The basic three type is, first is loop. The fingerprint goes here and then turns and then come back. This is a loop. In wall we have concentric circles. So wall has concentric circle and arch just have these arches over here. So we have loop, wall and arch. Now what is core and delta? See, core is the central part. In here you can see there is one central part, this is the core. In wall also you can see one central part, but here there is no such part. There are such arches. So we have one core in loop and one core in wall. Now delta is the turns. Here only there is only one turn, while in here walls there is one turn and then second turn. So there are two turns, so it gives rise to two delta. So the loop has one delta, wall has two delta. And as I said, now the loop here you can see that, okay, the loop here, the loop is facing in this direction, it can also face in the other direction, right? So if this pattern faces on the radial side of the hand, it is radial pattern, and if it faces on the ulnar side, it is ulnar pattern. So loop has two types, ulnar and radial. Walls are just concentric circles. Now in arches you can have two type. If the height is increased a bit more, then it is called tented. If the height is decreased, it is called plane. Last one is composite fingerprinting. If more than two pattern combines, it's just a random pattern happening, so it is a composite fingerprinting. So there are four types: loop, wall, arch and composite. Loop goes and come back, wall there is concentric circles, and arches are just like this. Now you can see the real images. This one is loop, it goes up and come back like loops. Walls are concentric circles and arches are just arrows. Now fingerprint comparison. See, as I told you, there are only four patterns, so the pattern is insufficient to compare, because more than two person can have the same pattern, right? So now what we do, now we take parts of these ridges. Now the part of the ridges are called minute, and we compare this minute. Minute can be of different types: double bifurcation, bridge, ridge ending, bifurcation. There are a lot of type of minute. So we require 16 identical minute for matching the fingerprinting, right? So we just went deep inside these edges and found out the parts are same or not in two fingerprintings, that are called identical minute. Now first, and that is called what? Rhizoscopy. Rhizoscopy is matching the identical minute. Second is edgescopy. How this minute or how these ridges or papillary ridges are ending. We see this ending or edges. If edges are same, then we can say that okay, there's two fingerprintings are same. So edgescopy is the study of edge characteristics. Last one is poroscopy. See, over here in this diagram you can see that these ridges are zoomed out, and in between you can see these pores. These pores are nothing but sweat glands, right? And these pores have different size. Here you can see it is square, oval, round, etc. So there are different size, shape and location of these pores, and that is also peculiar to a particular person only. So last one is poroscopy, and we have 9 to 18 pores per mm. So there are three techniques for fingerprinting comparison. One is rhizoscopy, edgeoscopy and poroscopy. Now, alteration in fingerprinting. How this fingerprint can be altered? These are some limitations over here. First is adermographia. Adermographia is, in this image you can see there is absence of fingerprinting or there is no fingerprinting at all. Now, in certain diseases, the person was having fingerprinting in the earlier, but after some disease happened, the fingerprint can either be atrophy, complete atrophy, partial atrophy, or there can be permanent alteration of fingerprinting or increased reach spaces. So let's say in which diseases this happen. See, this is a celiac disease. In celiac disease, there is complete atrophy. Now, what is celiac disease? Let's learn that first. See, these are normal intestinal villi, and these are damaged villi in the celiac disease. Why? Due to the autoimmune, the antibodies that destroy this villi. So, if the villi are destroyed, there is no absorption of nutrient in the blood, right? So, the body will not get proper amount of nutrition. Now, the skin need this nutrient for regeneration. If there are no regeneration, then there will be atrophy of the skin. So this will also affect the fingerprinting which is on the skin. So so that's why we have complete atrophy in celiac disease. Partial atrophy is seen in atopic dermatitis, which is simply the skin inflammation or skin disease. So partial atrophy is seen in atopic dermatitis and complete atrophy is seen in celiac disease. Now, permanent alteration. Where all can you see the earlier we studied that was atrophy. Here we are studying alteration. See, alteration is seen in leprosy, electrocution, and radiation. This is electrocution where there is shock encounter. So, leprosy, electrocution, and radiation has permanent alteration. Now, where all can be increased reach spaces? How these reach spaces are increased? See, in acromegaly, when growth hormone excess is there, it leads to growth of face, hands, etc. So when there will be growth, then there will be increased spacing, right? Because there is a growth. So we have acromegaly wherein increased reach spaces are seen. Second one, in rickets and infantile paralysis. What is rickets? Rickets is just softening and turning of this bone, so bone becomes soft. In this condition also we have increased reach spaces. So permanent alteration in leprosy, electrocution and radiation, while increased reach spaces in acromegaly, infantile paralysis and rickets. Now, what is chiloscopy? Now, this specific pattern are not only seen in the hands, right? Some specific pattern are seen in the lips. So, chiloscopy is the study of lips. In the crime scene, these lip marks can be present at cigarette butt, edible items, and straw. So, from there we can know that okay, whatever person were presented during this occasion at the crime scene. So, we have Srugin's classification of lip prints, right? So this is the entire classification. So see, in type 1 pattern we have complete vertical grooves, second partial vertical grooves. So one is complete, second is partial vertical grooves, second we have branched grooves, so complete, incomplete, branched. Third is, you can see these grooves are intersected, so branched, intersected. Four done. Fifth is reticular pattern. This is a mesh like or net like reticular pattern, and last one is undifferentiated or patternless. So first one is complete, then partial, then branched and intersected. Just learn this image: complete, partial, branched, intersected, reticular and undifferentiated. These are six pattern of the lip fingerprinting. Now we have done this uh, fingerprinting, lip fingerprinting, but what if the body is completely burned and mutilated? Now we cannot use lip fingerprinting or any fingerprinting, right? So in this case also one pattern is not altered, and that is rugoscopy or palatoscopy. See, this anterior one third of hard palate, you see this marks, right? So these are rugoscopic marks and they are not altered, or the hard pellet is preserved in charred or mutilated body. So from here we can identify this person. So these are rugae on the anterior one third of the hard pellet. So there are three types based on the length. We have primary, secondary and tertiary, right? Primary is 5 to 10 mm, then we decrease it 3 to 5 and less than 3. So we have primary, secondary and tertiary, and this was palatoscopy. Now tattoo marks. See, these tattoo marks are caused when this dye, you see this dye is inserted in the dermis. This will result in tattoo marks. If it is in the epidermis, this dye will be washed away, or below dermis it will be phagocyzed by the macrophages, right? So this tattoo mark is due to dye in the dermis. Now if we, even if the person tries to remove these tattoo marks or make it less prominent, these tattoo marks, this dye from the dermis, it goes inside the lymph nodes. So let's say the tattoo mark is entirely gone, the person has removed it, but the dye is still, let's say this is a lymph node, that dye went to the lymph node, it is stored in the lymph node. So you can examine the lymph node. If the dye is present there, it means that the person was having a tattoo mark, and you can identify the person like this. So examine the regional lymph nodes. Now verification of faded tattoo. If the tattoo is faded, then you can easily see it with the help of UV light or infrared light or magnifying glasses. This is how you see the faded tattoo. So we have tattoo inside the dermis, then we see the regional lymph node if the person has removed the tattoo, to identify it if he had tattoo or not. Now, what information does the tattoo give? It gives the name of the person, religion, place, political interest, based on anything. And the most important thing is IV drug use. How? Because whenever an IV drug user uses those IV lines, there is stretch marks over here on the hand. Now to hide these marks, that person will apply a tattoo over here. So we can say that okay, if the tattoo is present over here, he must be using this IV drug. So everything, this is the information that you can be recovered from the tattoo marks. Now this one is superimposition. See, let's say we found a skull in the crime scene. Now we are suspecting that this skull might be of this person. So what we do, we superimpose that skull on the person's photograph or videograph, right? Photograph or video, we superimpose that person skull on the person. Then we compare some landmarks like this. Here over here you can see this is outer canthus, this is nasion, and this is inner canthus. So inner canthus, nasion and outer canthus, we compare this of the skull and of the person by superimposing that. From this we can get an idea that this skull belong to that person or not. So this is superimposition. Now superimposition has a great negative value. How? If the landmarks that I told you, inner canthus, outer canthus and nasion, if they all match, then skull may be belonging to that person, but we are not sure that it is that person only. From that superimposition we have to use some other techniques, but if does not match, then we are 100% sure that the skull does not belong to that person. So we have this superimposition has a great negative value. Now, last topic of this lecture is medical legal importance of age. See, if the infant is less than 1 year, then killing the infant subjects to infanticide, and it is punishable under 103 BNS or murder. Same punishment is given while killing any adult or anyone. So, infanticide is punishable under murder. If the infant is less than 7, it is not criminally responsible. Even if he commits the crime, he is not criminally responsible. 7 to 12, criminal responsibility is decided based on the mental maturity, and the bench of judge, they will decide that the child is mature enough to understand what crime he has committed, and then according punishments are given. So we have less than 7 years 20 BNS, 7 to 12 we have 21 BNS. If the child is greater than 12 years, then if the child is less than 12 years, then oath is not required. If the child is presented on the court, oath is not required because the child doesn't understand the importance of it. Second, consent is valid only for general examination and not for other surgeries, right? A less than 12-year-old child just can only give a consent for the general examination, blood pressure measurement, temperature measurement, right? He cannot give a consent for a surgery or a organ donation. For that we have to require the guardian consent, which is under 27 BNS. Now, less than 14 years child cannot be employed, right? Less than 16 years taking a boy, or for girl it is age is more. Less than 18 years juvenile girl accounts to kidnapping, it is a crime. Now, right for 18-year-olds, 18-year-old can vote, get a driving license, is a legal marriage age for females. Now 18, I told you that less than 12 years cannot give any consent for surgeries, right? So for consent of surgeries and organ donation we require 18 year of age. So 18 years of age can give the consent. Consent for sexual intercourse and testamentary capacity, which is a writing of valid will, all is given at the age of 18. Now at the age of 21 he becomes a major, and it's a legal age of marriage for boys.